All right. So you should have this glued into your notebook. If you're watching at home on the video, you can pause it and jot down the gist of it. Did we go over the answers? Or did we have time to finish answering? No, we didn't have time? Okay. So, no, that's not what I wanted. Let me see. That's what. Alright, so I'll give you a few minutes to work on that. Yeah. Alright. So, what was the question the scientist started with? What was the big idea that got the person thinking? Yes, sir.
The question said if the oil ran out in the storage drains and keep the seaweed from growing normally.
Okay, excellent. So the question is that big idea. Like, does oil affect the growth of seaweed? What was his hypothesis? What was his plausible explanation? Yes, sir.
His hypothesis I heard was that it will prevent seaweed growth.
Okay. So, says he thought the oil runoff from the storm drains would keep seaweed from growing normally. Now, the trick here is growing normally. So maybe the oil makes it grow faster, maybe it makes it grow slower. Either one would not be normal. So you should have something like that. The oil would affect the growth of the seaweed. The oil would keep it from growing or something like that. Identify the independent variable and the dependent variable and the controls. So what was the independent variable? What's the thing that this scientist changed? He's got two fish tanks. So here's fish tank 1 with some seaweed in it. Here's fish tank 2 with seaweed in it. We'll call this B. We'll call this A. So what did he make different between the two fish tanks? Yes, sir.
He put the oil runoff in one place, none in
Okay.
the other.
So one of them has oil and the other one does not. So is that something he did or is that something that happened?
He did.
Right, he did. So that's the independent variable. The presence of oil. Okay, because that's what I changed. He changed it. Right? Now what's the dependent variable? The dependent variable is the outcome. So what did he measure?
If the one in the oil in it would grow quicker or slower than the other one that doesn't have any in it.
Right? So the dependent variable would be the growth. Because that's what you measure, that's the outcome. And which tank do you think was the control? Remember, the control is used for comparison. If I think my mom's apple pie is better than my wife's apple pie, okay, then I'm going to have my wife bake a pie, then I'd have my mom bake a pie, and then I would taste them both and compare my wife's pie to my mother's. to see which one tasted better. Truth is, the answer is whichever one is still holding the rolling pin. Think about it. Yes, sir.
The one with no oil in it?
Right. So this is your control. That's your comparison. Because you want to know whether or not the oil made a difference. And the only way to do that is to have some seaweed with no oil. What did the data show? Someone other than Don. Or Sean.
Sean.
You're Sean. He's Don. Yes, ma'am.
The data showed that the seaweed in the oil didn't grow as tall as the seaweed in
Okay.
empty water.
Right. So the no oil grew more than the oil. That's not a good complete sentence, but you get the idea. Can he be certain of his conclusion? And how can he make his conclusion firmer? Addison?
Can't be certain of his conclusion, needs to retest multiple times to make sure it wasn't true.
Right. So no, he can't be certain, he needs to retest. Or, if he was only going to do one test or one experiment, he should have had multiple fish tanks with oil and multiple fish tanks without oil. So he could either retest or have a larger sample. So here's what we're going to do. Now if I go back to the pointer, I should be able to do that. So if you need the answers, so if you're at home, you can pause and get those if you need them. Make sure you review independent and dependent. They will be on the first quiz, the first test, and probably every test after that. So know the difference. All right, so here we have the major branches of earth science. Some of them may be a little bit new, some of them might be self-explanatory. So I'll give you a few minutes here, and then we'll go over them and move on. All right, so these are pretty self-explanatory. Meteorology and climatology, just remember that climate is over a long period of time. Okay, so every year, it happens at least once. Okay, there's some politician that goes out and like Alaska gets a foot of snow or something, and they're like, well, where's the global warming? Okay, it's still there. Okay, climate is a long period thing. Weather is what is a snowstorm. And when we get to oceanography in class, we'll talk about how one of the things we have to worry about is not just whether or not the atmosphere is warming up, but whether or not the oceans are warming up for a number of reasons. Anyway, so of course, then you go too far. All right. So then we have these questions, and I think they're fairly straightforward. What are three main branches of earth science? So, good morning. Actually going to exit out of this.
You need the, legislative.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Alright. Go here. Where am I? Alright. Earth science and its branches. The three main branches are geology, meteorology. Come on now. There we go. I think I should say the main branches, not three. The main branches are geology, meteorology, climatology, oceanography, and environmental science. So I think that's a typo for either me or the book. Why are you? Oh, you're on the eraser, not pointer. All right. So there you would just list the major branches, not, that should be the, not three. What branch of science deals with stars and galaxies? It's there in the notes. List some important functions of Earth scientists. So think about some of the things they study. What is the focus of a meteorologist? An astronomer has discovered a new planet. On that planet, she sees what appears to be a lava flow. What type of scientist might she consult to help her figure it out? Okay. An ecologist notices that an important coral reef is dying off. He believes that it has to do with some pollution from a local electric plant. What type of scientist might help him analyze the water for contamination? Design an experiment that you could conduct in any branch of Earth science. So just pick a branch. Okay. Identify the independent variable and the dependent variable. What safety precautions would you have to take? All right, so that's not a right or wrong answer, as long as you have an answer and it makes sense. Now, if you're like, well, I'm gonna test whether or not Bugs Bunny can fly a spaceship. Okay, that's no. Okay. So as long as it's reasonable and makes sense, that'll be fine. All right.